So what turned out could be a good week for the UK stocks and the UK economy very quickly ended up being very negative. And the bit that I mentioned to you guys on Monday about this is only my little concern that I have at the moment. Unfortunately, that concern has come true this week, and in fact, the situation is probably even a bit worse than what I thought it could be. And today we're going to talk about the hyperinflation that is currently hitting the UK. Now, as well as that, I'll talk about stocks a little bit towards the end of the video and my plan going around the UK stocks and going forward with this situation that's going on. But yes, we had the inflation data today, and yes, it was bad, and it was even worse than what we was expecting. UK inflation hits the highest in more than a year, and the key thing is that when we last had a big inflationary period, a little bit of that, it could have maybe been managed a little bit better for sure, but a little bit of that was a little bit out of our hands, and it was more to do with the Ukraine-Russia situation, and that's why we saw inflation absolutely skyrocket through many countries. Unfortunately, right now, this is just a UK thing. We only have inflation doubling up in the UK right now, and when we look at the United States of America, the US, even with the whole tariff situation at the moment, their current inflation is 2.3%. We look at the UK's latest batch of data, which was expected to come in at 3.3%. It actually came in at a whopping 3.5%, and that is higher than the Eurozone inflation at the moment at 2.2%. And at this rate, we might even be catching Argentina with the way that they're dropping down and we're going up, which is not good. And who would have thought? Who would have thought inflation would double? Who would have thought we would hit a hyperinflation? Well, a guy in the office. I tell you all the time, I don't know how we have these people in power in the UK that are just so useless at the job. So useless. They get paid all this money and yet they don't see these things coming. How we have a UK government that did not realise the things that they were putting in place would not end up to lead into the situation where inflation would double under their power is insanity. Absolutely crazy. And these people, what really frustrates me at the moment is that I always look at the UK and I always think we have a decent economy here. We could be a great country. We could have a great economy. And yet we just have total donuts. Absolute donuts, whether that be the UK governments that we had, whether it be the Bank of England, we just have absolute nuggets that come in and run the country and ruin what could be amazing. I mean, look at the retail sales. Look at the draw. We have all this nice warm weather. People are out spending. Retail sales are booming. The most since we came out of lockdown in July 2021. And yet we have idiots that come into power and ruin things and cause inflation to double up. And we have people that just aren't managing the situation correctly. And it's just so frustrating. And they'll look at this going, I think I saw Rachel from Accounts today. And she came out and she's like, yeah, it's disappointing. Never mind disappointing. Talk to us why you thought putting these things in power would actually not lead to this situation. You know, I would love people to get pay increases. But when you come into power and straight away you start handing out 22% pay increases and you don't think that's going to have a knock on to inflation, then you're an absolute nugget. There's no way to put it other than that. If you start coming in and you start putting employer NI increases from 13.8% up to 15%, and you don't think companies are going to be putting up their prices in April to accommodate for these extra costs, which is then going to put inflation up, and all of a sudden you're shocked when you see the numbers and inflation has gone up today. Absolute nuggets. You know, you look at the minimum wage. Once again, I want to make this really clear. I would love people to get paid more. But the way you get people paid more is not by forcing it onto all these companies. These companies have to eat up all the costs. They put the prices up and then everybody's worse off because inflation goes up, the economy suffers. The way you get price increases is by having a strong economy. Naturally. And then everybody can have pay increases. But if you're putting these costs up from where we had the previous government, which was just as useful, by the way, as useless, and they were putting corporation tax up by 5%. They were putting big increases on these companies. And then you're coming up with these big increases of wages by 6.7%, 3 times inflation. And then you go, right, you know what? That's your issue. You go sort it out. We're taking the easy route. We're going to let these companies sort it out. And then they have to sort it out by putting up the prices. And they're shocked when inflation goes up. It's just absolutely crazy. And this has all come from really a government that just, I don't know how they didn't see it happening. Because, like I said, for me, sat in this office 6 months ago saying this was going to happen. We're going to have inflation double under this current government, and then we have it. Absolutely bonkers. So it's frustrating. Now, the more frustrating thing is like, it's not just that. It's just the way that the current government just make mistake after mistake. Like, I look at this UK-US trade deal, and I generally think they post it out there thinking, oh, we hope people just read the headline and go, oh, it sounds good, the UK and US got a trade deal. And then you actually look at the information and go, why are we signing this? This deal has made us massively worse off. And yet they continue to do another poor deal. And that will have the knock-on effect in months' time. Another poor EU deal. And it's not just the current government, like the previous government and the poor EU deals that they've got for the country. And then you have these people that come in power and they just lie all the time. They're better at lying than what they're actually doing in power. You know, this talking about freezing energy price caps and windfall tax on these energy companies. And then they come into power and they're just as useless with the whole situation with the previous government. And yet everyone's bills are going up once again because they're not dealing with the situation in which they said they were going to handle it different. People's bills going up with the council tax, which they said they're going to freeze. Once again, lying to people. And they go up again. And everyone's just worse off from this situation. And the final point here. The Bank of England. The Bank of England. They might as well be the bank of absolute useless donkeys. What are they doing? What are they actually doing? We had one of the Bank of England chief economists come out today saying, why are they cutting rates and continue to cut rates? And how many times I've said this to you guys? Why are the Bank of England cutting interest rates now? They had inflation on the UK when it was in this period between April and October, and they didn't cut their interest rate once. And in October, we saw what the current government plans were, and then they went, you know what, let's start cutting interest rates. And I can't remember how many times it's been cut since then. Is it 3 interest rate cuts we've had since that time frame? And then inflation's gone up bonkers amounts. Now the problem is that inflation's going up, but the one thing you do to combat inflation is, well, you have to put interest rates up. Well, the problem is they've just been cutting them. What are they actually doing? What is the Bank of England actually doing? What data are they actually looking at? Because I don't understand how me in this office can see better than the current government that what they're doing is going to cause massive doubling up of inflation, and we've got it. I don't know how the Bank of England are coming to these decisions of cutting interest rates when inflation is about to go sky high, and yet when they should have been cutting interest rates, they just sat there. Absolutely bonkers. And I guess really, nothing's going to change. Nothing's going to change at the moment because we've just got idiots running the country, and it's just one after another. It's not even just like, we've had bad previous governments, but I generally didn't think we could get anything worse, and that's the situation that we have. And the fact that we have to just sit here for 5 years and soak it up is just even worse. Just absolute crap situation. Now, I guess, obviously that's quite negative. Let's talk about UK stocks. Now, I do like UK stocks. At the end of the day, you can still, even with useless governments, you can still have stocks that perform very well at the end of the day, and you can still make money. You are buying companies, and companies can still navigate poor governments and do very well financially and do very well in the share price. Granted, it makes it a lot tougher. It does make it a lot tougher, but you can still do it. And hopefully, because you've got that little inside knowledge working in the UK side, it does really help you. But my thoughts around UK stocks is that, when you look at proper UK stocks, I'm not talking these UK stocks that have 80% of the revenue coming in from around the world and people go, well, that stock's doing okay through this whole time period and yet they're 80% international. I'm talking like pure UK stocks. And you look at that UK stocks like, Card Factory, how much since this current government has come in, how much they've been walloped on the share price. You look at these like JD Wetherspoons, proper British pub, absolutely slapped since this current UK government has come in. Greggs, another company that's been slapped since this current UK government has come in. Tesco's, that got slapped when this UK government came in. And they're all these stocks slumped because they looked at this UK government and they went, what you have in place for us with these massive increases is going to make us worse off. It's going to hurt our bottom line. And what we had is all these stocks, all these UK companies absolutely tanked because they realised that the profit is going to get hit. So some of these stocks, you could argue, went to attractive value. And since that time frame, a couple of them have kind of priced it in. And, there has been those kind of little bit of rallies out. You have had the likes of the Card Factory has rallied out of the situation a little bit. You have got the likes of JD Wetherspoons that has rallied out of the situation a little bit. You've got the likes of Greggs, which is starting to kind of rally out of the situation a little bit since the bottom. You've got likes of Tesco that's rallied out a little bit since the bottom. So these are a lot of UK stocks that have kind of ramped up a little bit. My concern right now is that, a lot of these UK stocks have rallied out a little bit at the moment, but I just don't trust the people that are in power. And they just don't listen to what companies are telling them. And when they don't listen to what companies are telling them, and they make decisions like this, and they must generally think it's going to make the situation better when it's not. But the fact that they think that it will is concerning to me. And if the UK consumer is, especially the middle class, because I say this all the time, the middle class is the heartbeat of the UK economy. And if they feel the pain, that's when the economy feels the biggest pain as well. But if they're about to feel inflation hit the back pocket again, because inflation's going up, we can't have the interest rate cuts realistically now. Interest rate cuts are going to have to stay the same, or they're going to have to start going up again. That means people are going to have to get the mortgages at higher payments. It could be what has the foundations to be a good time for the UK. It could be a bit of a tough time again for the UK, and I would not be too surprised if this little bit of optimism that has been building around the UK the last kind of couple of weeks and months might start sneaking away a little bit. So, for when it comes to a stock point of view, today I saw this news and I thought, I've made a bit of money, I'm going to take a bit off the table and I'm going to cash some in because I generally don't trust who's running the country at the moment. If the stocks continue to go up, I've still got some skin in the game and I will make money from the situation. But I looked at the bounce that we've had with the optimism, and then I looked at the news today and just, once again, you think it can't get any worse, and then you get the EU inflation data, and it's not only bad. We've not only seen the inflation double, it's the fact that it's up, nearly 10% higher than where it should have been. And it's just concerning and it's frustrating. So that's where I'm doing with UK stocks, is that I've made a bit of money at the moment with the dips that they've been on, and I'm still keeping a lot of them for the long term because at the end of the day, I think the quality companies and they'll manage the situation. But my days, this government's making it a lot harder for them. And while they are having the bounce up, I will just take a little profit off the table in case they do want to kind of retest the lows here. But overall, it's just massively frustrating because like I said, I think we do have the foundations to do really well from these situations, and yet we just have Muppets in charge, whether that be whatever the government is at the time or even the Bank of England. They're just so slow at making the right decision or they just make the wrong decision. And and I said to you guys on Monday, I said, things could do well here. If we had people that were running the country quite well, we could do really well in these situations. But the fact that we just have Muppets that just keep making the wrong decision all the time, it's one step forward and two steps back all the time, and that's the frustrating thing. So I apologise because there's not really much information here apart from me having a rant, but I guess you kind of get my feeling about where I'm at with UK stocks is that I'm still holding a lot for the longer term, but I certainly, with the rally that we've been on and just the negative news that came out today, I just thought, you know what? I'm going to cash a little bit in, to be fair. And I did trim a couple of UK stocks by 10-15% today. That's just in case if the negative sentiment starts hitting the UK consumer and some of these stocks start retesting the lows again. And especially with future budgets coming up as well, because with how much the GDP growth is sinking under the current government as well, more than likely that's going to be another awful budget where they have to raise taxes. Do they go raise taxes from these companies that they've already hit about 3 times in the last 12 months? And then they sink down again? I made some money. I'm going to protect that money a little bit at the moment, and you don't know where stocks are going to go, so I'm just positioning myself. And yeah, it definitely was a little bit of a knock on the confidence on the UK side. So yeah, that's my thoughts. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys. Hope you enjoyed the little moan and the rant a little bit, and yeah, we'll see where we're at going forward. Anyway, see you in a bit.